What's the communication budget for Snowy Hydro 2 in each of the last 3 years, please? The cost and the headcount. I take it on notice if you...
Yeah, take it on notice. I can give you some colour. It's a small team, 2 to 3 people in the communications team. But okay, we can provide details on notice.
The dollars and the numbers, yes. Okay. How do you handle the accounting for the tunnel boring machines like Florence? Do you write off the purchase price or do you depreciate it?
Well, the cost is included in the $12 billion of construction cost. It doesn't become an asset because obviously it's not in use post-construction, but the cost of procuring the tunnel boring machine and operating it goes to the asset cost of $12 billion, and then that will be depreciated over time.
Of the hydro project, Snowy 2 project, so there's no value in the machine at the end?
No, I mean, you can resell parts and the like, but these will be pretty well worn.
Sorry?
They'll be pretty well worn by the time they're finished.
What was the purchase price of Florence? And what's the current value on your books, given that it's not being used in an optimal manner?
Well, we have a capital work in progress line on our balance sheet, which is the whole project. The cost of Florence we can take on notice, but they're in the order of $100 million.
Okay, thank you.
But they're effectively a consumable.
Yeah. So the machine will be valueless at the end?
Effectively, yes.
So the machine has no value, so it's not going to be written off. It's just part of the construction cost of the project. Yeah. So just
in the same way that, I think 60 or 70% of the project costs are people costs who will no longer be working on the project.
Not turning them into slaves?
Sorry?
Not turning them into slaves?
No.
No, okay. So far in this head race tunnel, you've run into ground that was too soft, rock that was too hard, jammed it going around a corner. Is this a contractor driving the machine, or is this you, the project, who is getting the calculations wrong over and over again? What's gone wrong? There seem to be big flaws.
As we've said before, the geological conditions across the project are very variable. The event that happened in December 2022, we've traversed that. There was a project that wasn't operating effectively, and we've corrected that. The current sticking in hard rock is something that's not uncommon through these types of tunnels. The project team are very engaged. Now, we were public within a day. There's 2 meetings a day to work out what to do next. So we see it as one of the normal challenges of a mega project. So obviously, as we've discussed before, the December 2022 incident could have been handled better, and that's why we reset the project. I believe the reset is working, and we've hit one of the challenges we will face on a mega project which has geological risk.
So, coming from a mining background, if we know that the geology is going to be highly variable, then depending upon the value of the deposit and the return over the life of the project, the mine, we would do more drilling at a closer spacing. What extra exploration did you do to minimise the risk of what you already admitted was a highly variable site?
Well, I think there was $100 million spent in the pre-financial investment geological surveying. Obviously, operating within a national park and with the cost of that geological surveying, there's a point where you have to make a risk-based decision. We are able to
probe... That was before your time, right?
Yeah. We are able to probe ahead of the machine to test the conditions, but it's not foolproof, as we've discovered.
Right. Because in a private enterprise project, if it had too many delays, the project goes bankrupt, and that's it. But here you've got a bank behind you, seemingly endless amount of cash. What are we up to now, 14 billion?
Well, the public, we updated the business case and released it publicly on Friday and reaffirmed the $12 billion cost, which
what was the original cost estimate?
I think the contract cost at FID was $5.9 billion. So $12 billion is in the public business case and shows a return of, on an NPV basis, of $3 billion.
So the cost has doubled?
Yeah, but the revenue case has also increased over that period.
Yeah. Well, the only way it makes money is if electricity prices are unreasonably high in the peak electricity use periods, which means that the failure of the national electricity market is what enables Snowy 2 to go ahead.
I mean, we would argue that the role of Snowy 2 in the market is actually to facilitate the delivery of the lowest cost form of energy in solar and wind, and we provide the backup to that low cost energy. It's not actually an energy producer, it's just there for insurance.
So has anyone been held accountable for these repeated failures, and who picks up the tab? Taxpayers?
Well, the $12 billion project cost is still what we believe the project will be delivered for. So, as I said, mega projects have challenges along the way. You allow for those. It was important that we reset the project such that the contractor and the Snowy team are working collaboratively together to solve it. And transparently, as soon as we hit this pinch point, we made a press release the following day to that effect.
So, can you understand the frustration from taxpayers who are feeling that frustration because our money's being seemingly flushed down the toilet faster than you can drill the pipe? Why hasn't anybody been sacked?
I mean, I joined the company 16 months ago.
Was that someone had been sacked?
And I obviously led the reset of the project. And when we reset the project, we had a target for this financial year of making 8% progress, and 8% in a volumetric sense.
8%? What do you mean by 8%?
8% of, if the project's 100%, we needed to make 8% progress this financial year.
Excavation of 8%?
Well, it's earned value is the calculation, which is the total volume of the work required to finish the project.
So not volume of stone, but volume of work?
Volume of work.
Okay.
And we've achieved 6% as at the end of April and are on target to achieve 8% for the financial year.
Okay. The passage through natural asbestos deposits is still to come. Can you provide me with the drilling plan and risk management plan, including occupational health and safety for workers who will be exposed to asbestos?
So the primary control is that as we approach the naturally occurring asbestos, the Florence TBM will go into what we call closed or slurry mode. So it will excavate in a closed loop with a liquid in front of the machine, and that will be extracted through pipes. So there will be no exposure to any individual of asbestos.
And what about disposal? Eventually it dries out, presumably.
It dries out and it
There's
gets
a separation
in
the slurry treatment, which removes the asbestos from the slurry, and then that is a contained process, and that'll be disposed of under the approvals that we have.
Do we have a copy of the overall plan, please, on notice?
I mean, I don't know if it is in the construction approval documentation.
I presume it is.
I think it is public document, so we can give you a link on notice.
Minister, will the Commonwealth make a provision in the budget against future medical claims for workers on this project who will be exposed to asbestos? Do you acknowledge the risk and the government's liability?
I think that questions about the financing of this project generally are to be asked in the Department of Finance. I understand the question that you're asking, but it may be that other officials have another additional information to provide, but I think it's a Department of Finance
no one
question,
knows if
Senator.
there's a contingency for a liability?
I think the Commonwealth has broad provisions to manage risks, but it's probably one for the Department of Finance, who are broadly responsible for the financing strategy as the shareholder minister.
Mr Barnes, your executive officer, chief executive officer, could we get that from you on notice?
We don't make a provision for that circumstance. Our job is to make sure no one's exposed.
Okay. If Snowy Hydro was terminated right now and the site put back how you found it, what would be the cost to taxpayers?
I mean, we have spent $5.3 billion to date.
How much?
$5.3 billion.
Yeah.
We have not considered the cost to stop the project. We're focused on finishing the project.
So you haven't calculated the cost of expenditure so far, plus cancellation and the cost of remediation?
No.
Okay. Has anyone from the current government or the previous LNP government asked you for that figure or some version of it?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Roberts.